Muddy floodwaters surged through cities and towns, spilling over fertile farmland. Streets that were once bustling have become raging rivers, while hillsides collapsed without warning, as if everyday life had been suddenly put on pause. The center of Yang City, the heart of the region, was among the first to be hit. Grey, murky water swept through residential areas, swallowing front yards and shop fronts. Residents had no choice but to scoop water out of their homes with buckets. While small boats and makeshift rafts became the only way to reach higher ground. Many families could only wait on the rooftops, praying that rescue teams would arrive before things got worse. In Wuxi County, rescue teams worked tirelessly, clearing debris and trying to divert floodwaters away from public buildings. Sandbags were stacked at the entrances of schools and hospitals to block the fierce current. In the main square, the national flag hung drenched and tattered, waving weakly in the wind.
Yalta today looked...
While the flagpole stood defiantly in a rising pool of water, a sight that left anyone watching with a heavy heart. Transportation across the province was nearly paralyzed. Bridges had cracked or collapsed, and rural roads vanished beneath muddy torrents. A major highway section in Joshua District was completely destroyed, with massive concrete slabs shattered and sliding down into the valley below.
الله أكبر طريق الريحانية انطلق يا شباب.
The disruption spread everywhere. Supply trucks had to turn back or wait for hours as many routes were blocked. Power and water were cut off in dozens of towns, power lines dangling and swaying in the wind, occasionally sparking before plunging the area into darkness. Residents no longer had running water and had to rely on emergency supplies. Repair crews struggled to restore basic services, but the waterlogged ground was unstable and dangerous, making every attempt slow and risky. In larger cities like Baoji and Chenan, underground shopping malls and subway stations were among the first places to flood. Escalators ground to a halt as water poured down the stairs. Shoppers scrambled to find exits as the lights went out, panic spreading through the crowd. Parking garages turned into giant bathtubs, trapping dozens of vehicles beneath layers of muddy water.
Abyss.
The sheer destruction was a chilling reminder of just how devastating nature can be when it unleashes its fury. Across Shaanxi's vast farmland, the damage was equally heartbreaking. Fields that once stretched green and abundant were now buried under layers of mud and stagnant water. Corn and wheat, which had just begun to ripen, lay flattened under the sheer weight of the floodwaters. Farmers dug makeshift trenches, desperately trying to save what little they could, but most of the crops were likely lost for the season. Livestock were being rushed to safer ground. Cattle, goats, and chickens were seen huddled together in panic as barns filled with water up to the knees. Many irrigation systems were destroyed beyond quick repair, sparking serious concerns about the province's future food supply. The long-term impact of this disaster on agriculture could be catastrophic. In response, relief teams were deployed in large numbers. Bulldozers worked to clear blocked roads, while soldiers distributed drinking water to stranded families. Emergency shelters were set up in schools, mosques, and community centers. Volunteers handed out dry clothes, flashlights, and warm meals. Doing everything they could to ease the suffering of those affected. Local authorities repeatedly called for vigilance. Loudspeakers in town centres broadcasted flood warnings day and night, urging residents not to return home too soon. Officials warned that the saturated ground remained unstable, raising the risk of landslides in the coming days. Meanwhile, several rivers were still swelling to dangerous levels. Even as rain subsided in some areas, returning residents were met with heartbreaking sights. Floors caked with mud, shattered windows, and refrigerators that had floated across kitchens. The scale of destruction was staggering. Power outages persisted in many districts, and communication lines remained unstable. Supply trucks were still struggling to reach remote areas, with hours-long delays. In many neighborhoods, people formed human chains to pass sandbags, water bottles, and food to one another. The sense of solidarity among neighbors, despite the devastation, became one of the few sources of hope. For families who had lost their homes and livelihoods, the road to recovery seemed long and uncertain. The government pledged assistance, but with roads, bridges, and farmlands destroyed, rebuilding would take weeks, if not months. For the elderly, children, and farmers who depended on these lands, every day without stability meant another step deeper into hardship. Shanxi had experienced floods before, but never at a scale like this. The tragedy was not just about the physical destruction, it was also about the emotional toll. Entire communities were left questioning how they would rebuild, whether the land could recover, and if their lives would ever return to normal. Yet, amid the ruins, acts of kindness persisted. Volunteers waded through waist-deep water to deliver food. Children in shelters shared blankets with strangers. And even in the face of loss, Neighbors reassured one another, holding on to the belief that together they would rise again. As the days passed, the immediate chaos began to give way to a grim reality. Some rivers remained dangerously high, and emergency teams continued to monitor water levels closely. In certain areas, the rain had finally stopped, but for those returning to their homes, the sight was devastating. Mud-stained floors, shattered windows, and waterlogged furniture told the story of lives abruptly uprooted. Refrigerators and wardrobes had drifted across rooms like toys in a child's bath. Reconstruction would not be quick. Roads and bridges would take weeks or even months to rebuild. Farmers faced the painful prospect of starting over entirely, with most of their crops destroyed and irrigation systems in ruins. For many families, the loss of livestock meant losing not just their income but their sense of security. Local authorities emphasized that assessing the full damage could take a long time.
Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to stay informed about the latest developments.